most popular questions that I see on BookTube is, how do I read more? And I think the answer to that begins with you asking yourself, why do you want to read more? Are you somebody that used to read a lot and now, you don't find yourself reading that much? Or is it that you've never been a reader and you want to be a reader? Because the answer to how do you read more really depends on the answer to those two questions. If you're somebody who's never actually been much of a reader, then ask yourself why. Is it because you don't have time, or is it because it's too much work, or is it because you've never read a book that really appeals to you? In my experience, a lot of times people talk about reading as if it's something aspirational. It's like we as society have decided that there is something inherently elite about people who read, and therefore we should all be reading a certain kind of book and we should all be reading a certain amount. And if you don't fill those quotas, then you are somehow stupid. And I don't think that's true. I think you should be guided by your preference. I mean, it can't hurt to read, but does it automatically make you a better human being? I don't think so. I know plenty of people who read widely and are as stupid as rocks. Reading can enhance you as a human being, but I don't think it can give you qualities that you don't possess. So the first thing you need to do is have a reasonable expectation of what you want to get out of reading. Secondly, reading is about choices. It's a time-intensive endeavor, so you have to think about what it is that you are getting out of this time that you are spending. For me, it's happiness. Reading books just makes me happy. It's a mental health thing, it's a life thing. I just don't know how to live without reading. But I absolutely know people who approach reading as if it's part of their 10-step plan to become somebody else, and I've never seen that work for anybody, so I don't know what you're trying to get out of it either. As an Indian, one of the saddest things that I've seen are the people who are told that, if you read English books, then you'll improve your English, which is true. Like, reading a book in a language will help you with that language. That's true. But then these same people are given, classics to read. So they're reading, Dickens or Hardy or Bronte. And I'm just like, well, after you learn English, are you planning to travel back to the 19th century to talk to people? It makes a lot more sense, in my opinion, for you to be reading popular literature if you are trying to improve your spoken English or your knowledge of English as it is spoken today. Next, you have to be aware that the time that you give to books is time that you will be taking away from other things. There are entire sections of pop culture in which I do not participate, or I participate in a very limited way because I don't spend enough time in those things, because all of my time is taken by reading, or most of my time is taken by reading. And that's fine by me because, reading gives me emotionally what I need, and those other things might not. But if you have other interests, then there is no reason for you to be like, oh, I have no hobby. You do, it's just not reading. I also find that it's a lot easier to keep up a reading habit if you find something that you love. I personally, I find it so hard to put down a book that I love. There have been days when I've stayed up till the sun came up because I was so engrossed in a novel and I didn't want to put it down. When I was a child, my parents would have to tell me off because I'd bring my books to the dining table. I'd take it with me when I was in the car. I would carry it with me when we went to visit boring relatives. I would always have a book in my hands. I'm the kind of person that always has a book in her bag, and if I have a break at work, then that's what I'm doing. I'm reading. Okay, I'm also socializing, but when I'm not socializing, I'm reading. So once you find the genre that appeals to you, one that really consumes you as a reader, it becomes so much more easier for you to read. And the best way to do that, to find your space in the reading world, is for you to just read as widely as possible. So try different genres, try different authors within genres, try things that you wouldn't think that you would enjoy. When I was a child and I started reading, I didn't even read descriptions of the books that I was reading. It was just there, I was bored, I picked it up and I started reading. We're also really lucky in the time that we live in because there are so many different avenues for people to read. So for example, if you're dyslexic or if you have a long commute, you could try getting into audiobooks. You could read on your phone, you could read on your Kindle, you could even read on your laptop. If you live in an area with a good library system, then you could probably even rent ebooks. It doesn't even cost that much to read books these days. And reading a physical book is actually great if you want to reduce your screen time. I spend hours of my life looking at screens because that's what my work entails, and it really helps me to have physical books because then I don't have to be looking at a screen. Also, I've never read to a plan. Like, I've never had like a list of things that I want to get through. I just, go out there and buy things that are of interest to me, and then I just need to get through that. But if you're the kind of person that needs a little bit of structure, then it's really great for you to be on things like BookTube or on Goodreads and just participate in challenges, for example. And you can just go through those challenges, and that would diversify your reading material, but also you can see yourself progressing throughout the year. And if you're the kind of person that's very goal-oriented and you'd like to tick things off, it'll really give you a sense of accomplishment. And sites like Goodreads is really great for you to keep track of your stats, for example. And the one thing that you need to learn is to DNF. This was really hard for me. Like, I am not somebody who doesn't complete her books. Like, I am a completist. I have sat through so many hours of bad TV just because I saw the pilot. And the same goes for books. I've read so many books where, I've read the first 50 pages, so now I need to finish all of it. The day I learned that I could just put things down and just push it out of my head and not spend even another second on it, it just was such a game changer. It's okay for you to put down a book if it doesn't grab you. That doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean that you don't have the attention span. It doesn't mean that, you can't understand this book. It just means that that book and you are not a good match. Put it right out of your head and move on. Life is so short and there are so many books out there. Why would you spend it on things that you don't want? For more videos, please hit the subscribe button.